Okay, so we are back with yet another Bridgerton Season 3 Yap session. We're going to be talking about Episode 6 today. I know it's been a while. I really appreciate everybody's patience. Just know, I mean, I still love Bridgerton, right? Like, even if I'm gone, I'll be thinking about Bridgerton and it'll be living rent-free in my head 24/7. Rest easy in knowing that fact. You know what I mean? Like, even if I'm not making videos, it's still everything to me. And obviously there are other things that I love. I mean, this isn't the only thing that I'm passionate about or the only thing that I watch or care about or talk about, obviously, but but it certainly is a big one, and it will be until it's off the air, pretty much, and probably even then, even after that. So people were like, oh, do you not like Bridgerton anymore? No, that's not what we're talking about here. Me not like Bridgerton could never be me. Could never be me. I could hate it, but I still love it. You know what I mean? So we'll talk about episode 6 today, and let's get into it. Also, of course, as always, this look is inspired by various different hair and makeup looks in the show, in this episode. And you know what, I can't pull them off. And that's not only because I'm not a professional hair and makeup artist, though in large part, it's also just because a lot of it doesn't work with like my hair. Like my hair's too long for some of the little swirlies that are done on Penelope, which I love on her, by the way. And also, how do y'all get that done? Because it's a hassle. So I love the intro of this. Obviously, we're picking up right where we left off with Cressida. It builds on that momentum of her revealing she's Lady Whistledown. It also is good both stylistically and narratively because it pops to a bunch of different people all at once and they all have their dissenting opinions. And that sets up the rest of the season really good. Because one of the things that I do really think that they did well in Season 3 is they set the structure well, because the first part was Colin falling in love with Penelope or realizing he was in love with Penelope. And then the second part is the Lady Whistledown of it all. And those are two kind of very different things, and they had a short amount of time to kind of tee it up for the second half of the season, and I think that this, among many other scenes, does this really well. Not Penn saying, I wouldn't want to insult the devil by comparing him to Cressida Cooper.
I will not insult the devil by drawing parallels between him and Cressida Cowper. For one is a liar, a fraud, a succubus of the first water, and the other is not known to this author.
She's so crazy for that. She said, I don't know the devil, but I do know this bitch named Cressida, okay? Let me tell you about her. But again, I'm like, Penn, and she did the right thing here. I'm like, Penn, some of these are insight thoughts. Write them down, sure. But do we have to publish every single thought we have? You know what I mean? Maybe a little editing, maybe a little refinement would be pertinent. Colin is, of course, very worried about Penn after she fainted at the end of last episode and comes to check up on her, and he is so worried it makes me sick. He's so worried sick that I'm sick. He is trying to, like, take her hand and, he's trying to get 2 inches from her face, as he would always like to be. Give the woman some space. And she's trying to hide her inky fingers, and I'm like, this part of the season gets really stressful, because they have these 2 parts that haven't yet collided, and it's an impending explosion. Like, it's doom. We're literally watching a train wreck about to happen, and we can do nothing to stop it but giggle in glee. But these 2 competing and conflicting things, the whole motif of the first half of the season and the motif of the second half of the season, they are about to intersect, and they're just skating by each other now. So every time it's like, because it's like, oh, I want to be so goo goo gaga over the fact that he's like gently taking her fingers and, like, you know, they're intertwining, their hands and whatnot. But I can't give a fuck about Paulin being cute and my shipper heart because, I'm sorry, something's about to ruin it all. Her inky fingers. So that whole thing, there's just so many moments like this in this episode and in next episode as they're building up to that eventual reveal. And again, he says, you know, after all the unkindnesses she's done us, I'm like, I love it. I love it so much. Maybe that's why people don't like this, because, like, I like to suffer in fiction. You know what I mean? Just a little bit. Just a little bit, because then it's like a sweet treat when you get the eventual, payoff. And then he says, I always assumed she'd be more clever. Penn, control it, girl. Control that smile, girl. Girl, So obvious. You're so lucky that Colin is just being, like, dumb with love right now. You're so lucky he's just staring into space and probably fantasizing about that settee. Because if you were looking at her in that moment, you're showing your cards a little bit too much for my liking, Pen, but she can't help but smile. She can't help but giggle. She's like, she is more clever. Oh, so you think I'm clever? Literally, they're together, they're in love, and she's like, so you think I'm clever? So me. So me. I'd be like, oh my god, you like me? We're literally engaged. Actually, in fact, you're literally pregnant with my child. And let's talk about that, because I just find it so funny. Posthumously, pretty much, Portia is being a role model little supervisor. So sorry to break it to you, it is too late. It is too little too late. Where was this energy in the carriage? Where was this energy at the new house? Really, we're doing this now? It seems so superfluous. I'm like, we're beyond this, guys. Like, you've literally been inside her. And that, I said that too. My first reaction when he says, good day, Miss Featherington, I get that he's saying it to be like, for now, you'll be Mrs. Bridgerton soon. Like, I get that. But I just couldn't help but bust out laughing.
Miss Featherington? For now?
You've literally been inside her. Like, what? Like, Beaver's so fucking real right now, Colin. Good day, Miss Featherington, he says. And she's literally pregnant with your child. What do you mean, Miss Featherington? Where is the room for honorifics now? Okay, like, what is going on? Propriety? Propriety who? When has propriety ever been a factor in this relationship, okay? Then we have a scene with Cressida and the fallout of her confessing. This makes sense. Her dad is mad and talking to her about writing for sheep or something. I don't really care if I'm candid. But you know what was crazy in this scene? Was her mom saying, cleverness is not amongst your talents. That's crazy.
You have many gifts, but cleverness is not amongst them.
I mean, is she correct? Yes. Is she speaking facts and truth? Yes. But that's a crazy thing to say to your kid. You know, I see why she is the way that she is. But then they're also trying to give us a little sympathy for the mom, too. Like, she's stuck in this bad marriage. I suppose for a larger audience, it's a good reminder that not every villain is so villainous and that there's more to them. Violet and Marcus have a little talk. He's not slick. He said, I came back to get my hat and gloves. Sir. They play this, like, I'm so sorry. And I think they played this at the Candlelight concert, too, because I went to the Bridgerton Candlelight concert, period. Maybe I should do a video about that. There was a lot of things that I noticed and I felt emotional about. But I think they played this cover, and I was like, why on earth are you playing this cover? Because why on earth did they put it in the show in the first place? Stop pissing me off, you guys! Here's the thing. Again, I've said this before, I'll say it again. Season 1 utilized these classical covers of modern music very poignantly. There was a purpose, there was a stylistic choice, there was a vision, and it worked, and it punctuated scenes. It was so well used. And season 2 kind of fell off a little bit, and season 3, they're just throwing everything in there. What do you mean? This classical cover of thunder, feel the thunder, lightning and the thunder. Like, what are we talking about? What are we doing? What are we doing? But not even that. They put it at the very end of the scene, and then into the transition of another scene. Just use an original piece of music if you need a little music for a transition of a scene. But why use a well-known popular song if there's not, like, a purpose to it? If it doesn't correspond? If it's not a serve? If it's not a gag?
You love the pink.
I love the colour pinks. I like the chocolate macarons. Benedict.
No, you can't have to.
I can guarantee you no one was gagging over the Imagine Dragons cover here. Used at the very end of one scene into another. I love the little scene of Francesca and John. It gives... Their scenes are so good because they're so short and they're so sparse, but they give so much information. Like, you already have learned so much about their dynamic, and I feel like you get even more insight into the way that they work, the way that they operate, the way that they banter, and kind of the development and growth of their relationship. They seem much more comfortable talking with each other and kind of teasing each other, and she's like, we'll talk to them, and you know, John makes this big declaration, so unlike him, but we like seeing these new colors and these new sides and him being a little sarcastic, and I just love that. I thought that was great.
I do not believe they will hear me.
What?
Excuse me? I have been taken ill of the plague, and you are all doomed by association.
Free banana my
And then Francesca's so cute, you know, she's like, family, come on, hello. But I did love also the detail that all of them, like, stopped in their tracks. The second Francesca spoke, they're like, what? Francesca wants to speak to us? What does she want to say? You know, she's very happy about that. She's like, thank you. Such a cutie patootie.
Thank you.
Again, Hannah Dawn, your hand in marriage, please. Again, anyone and everyone involved in the show, your hand in marriage. I would like it, and I would treat you well. That's all I can say. You know what I mean? She announces that they're engaged. They're all happy for her. This is a very cute Bridgerton family moment, W. Also, you know, Hyacinth, they really do keep inserting good moments for Gregory and Hyacinth that is very telling of their book counterparts. Like, you see those shades already being built, and I kind of can't wait to see what they do in later seasons when they become even more significant roles, because they're really just kind of like peppered in there, obviously, for now. But I love Hyacinth's little, you know, you'll be the most beautiful bride, except for Kate. Other than Kate? Now, why would you do that? Now, why would you rub salt in the wound? I don't want to hear about Kate's wedding. Because you know what? You didn't let me see it. You didn't fucking let me see her wedding. So keep her wedding out of your mouth. Literally, I don't, and we'll talk about this in episode 7, when she's like, our wedding was perfect. Well then, show the audience. Share, please. Share with the class. What do you mean? You think that's sufficient? You think just referencing their wedding, oh, they had a wedding. Obviously, they had a fucking wedding. We know this. They're married. They're... My wrath made that happen. Hold, please. As I was saying, we already know they're married. They are the Viscount and Viscountess. Don't rub it in our face that you didn't give us a wedding. In fact, don't you dare rub it in our face that you gave us a wedding to Edwina in lieu of a Kate and Anthony wedding. Move on. Keep trucking along. I have decided to let go and let God. And I'm just like, okay, let's focus on Poland. Don't piss me off again. Don't bring this back up. Either show it to me or never speak of it again. Thank you. But I did think that it was cute that she said that, very cute of Hyacinth, and then that, you know, Colin got a little like, what about Penelope? And then she mentioned Penelope, and he's like, period. Then there's a really great scene between Colin and Eloise. Again, I loved everything that they did with their relationship. I hadn't particularly cared for them as a sibling duo because there wasn't much of them in seasons 1 and 2, but they're kind of one of my favorite Bridgerton sibling combinations now after this season. I think it was really rich and complex. I think both of them did a good job acting it out. And there was just a lot of layers to kind of everything. And you're kind of illuminated at the fact that they really do love and care about each other, which obviously you know on a baseline level, but to see it in action and to see them actually interacting and having discussions, and Eloise worrying now about, you know, Colin's heart getting broken and wanting to spare him, and, you know, her empathy there, and him caring about her, and, you know, I'll go to their house with a pitchfork and things like that.
There is a part of me that should like to march to house with a pitchfork. And if you wished me to, I still would. But in truth, everything that has happened of late has softened me.
And also her, like, coming to accept this thing with Penelope, that he is, you know, going on a little bit of a diatribe. And he says, I know you don't wish to hear about it, but, you know, and he talks about how love is the only thing that matters, and she and their future is the only thing that he thinks about. And I think that that's really good for Eloise to hear for many different reasons. 1, for her reconciliation with Penelope. 2, her relationship with Colin. And 3, her overall characterization in the romantic sense, where it's like, okay, what is Eloise's understanding and worldview and perspective on romance and romantic relationships, which we obviously need to continue to set up when we get to her season. So I think this was a really good conversation, well written, some good sparring back and forth. I really love their sibling dynamic. It's very heartwarming. Eloise's growth is really evident here because She's willing to be selfless. You know, Eloise has had a problem with being selfish, with being brash, with not really thinking through things, being pretty immature. And you see her take a step back and kind of consider, and she's willing to almost self-sacrifice. She's like, I'll get over it. I'll, bite my tongue. And I won't tell you about what's happening with Penelope because of Colin, because she wants to do that for Colin, and she cares more about him than her own feelings, which is a really nice level of growth that we haven't seen from Eloise yet up until this point, and I think season 3 showed a lot of growth for her.
Perhaps I can make Lady Whistledown go away, so she shall not be able to harm any of us again.
You will speak with Miss Cowper?
With the scribe herself.
I also love that she, he's like, what, you'll talk to Cressida? And she's like, with the scribe herself. I'm like, period. Use that mind to your advantage, girl. The wordplay, we love to see it. And then she goes to Penn, obviously, and they're on very different pages at this point. She's like, I'll tell him, and she's like, actually, no, don't. And I think, the line where she says, for some reason, my brother truly believes he loves you, and the way she delivers it, ooh, yikes, that's really harsh.
For whatever reason, my brother truly believes he loves you.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I wish there was a line or something. Well, I guess she cried at their wedding. Maybe that can rectify it. But I would like to see her perspective on their romantic relationship. Not just like, my best friend and my brother, but just like, oh, they actually do love each other, damn. That type of a thing, at least to rectify this type of comment. Because that was really, I get that she's angry, but that's, I don't know, that's rough. The kind of incredulous way she delivered it was like, I couldn't possibly understand why he would love you. Well, Eloise, you're in love with her, too. So, look in the mirror. I also love this conversation because they both have really good points. And this is great for their relationship and also them individually as characters because they're both intellectuals. And so I like when they can be on the opposite sides of a spectrum and both have very valid reasoning and points, and they have a really good intellectual argument to make, but it's against each other. Like, I like seeing them opposed there. So Eloise is saying, well, this is the perfect time to stop. You have the perfect excuse now. And Penn is saying, this is the last time that I would ever stop, because why would I let Cressida get all the credit? And I understand both of those so much. Like, both of them are so valid, it makes so much sense. She's trying to spare Colin. She's saying, look, now you have an out. You had never had an out before. And of course, Penelope wouldn't want to give away her life's work to the girl who made her life a living hell. Eloise kind of served here. She said, what of Colin's heart?
I refuse to let Cressida Cowper take credit. It would break my heart.
And what of Colin's heart?
She said, what of Colin's heart? And you know what? I'm asking a similar question. Penn's stubbornness and her youth is very evident here. And even in just the way that Nicola does it, like, she's, like, fuming, and she's like, she might as well, like, stamp her foot. She's like, oh, like, that's the way that she's delivering this. She's so impudent. Like, she is so kind of defiant. And she's like, well, but I want to, like, and you see why, and she has justification, but she almost can't even articulate it. She hasn't even made sense of it yet, so she's just like, no, I can't do that. I can't do that. And it's really interesting because for someone who thinks so much about Colin, and we've seen so much of her arc be her thinking about Colin, the fact that Colin doesn't even cross her mind, and actually, even when faced directly with what of Colin, she's like, I don't give a fuck.
It would break his to find out the truth.
Lady Whistledown is my name.
Like, that's kind of, it's like, ooh, okay. But that's really the issue here. That's like the next phase of this season. Love or work, that kind of dilemma. And I think that this conversation starts to set up that dilemma really, really well. You see where both of them are coming from. You see the merit in both of those arguments. And you see why Penn is like, but actually, I've worked really hard and I don't want to let that go. And actually, maybe this is the only time that I've ever been appreciated in my life and I don't want to let that go. Then Eloise is saying, well, you can either be Whistledown or Bridgerton.
You cannot be both.
Damn. Seemingly right now, there's no way for her to be both of those things. And that's really an issue because they're both her dreams. They're both part of her identity. They're both who she is. And again, I think that's what they make really clear in this episode. Like, when I watched it, I remember going, okay, this is the angle they're going for. And it was very evident to me how the rest of the season was going to unfold, because I was like, okay, so they're doing this. And I think it's really smart. And I honestly think it's very, like, clever and cunning and keen, because it's taking a bit of a feminist spin and a little bit of a feminist stance on this, where it's like, okay, well, what? A woman can be in love and, but can't work? Like, what are we saying here? What messages are we sending? And that's kind of the dilemma. But I also think that it goes down to, which this was in the book, where it's like, well, if you're my true love, then should I have to suppress and be ashamed of this part of myself and not be accepted by you? Food for thought. And obviously it's more complicated because her work is directly or indirectly hurting him and those around him. But just generally, upon principle, you should be able to have your own life and your own work and your own passion, and also have love. They shouldn't interfere with each other. So it's interesting how they start to clash here. I also think that Penn's reaction to "it's just gossip" in the scene is very important and very telling. That was one of the key moments. I was like, okay. I see how they're doing this 180. They're spinning this.
But it's just gossip. Let it go.
Because Whistledown in the first 2 seasons is more of a plot device than anything else. It's a tool for drama. It's a tool for scandal, right? And they have made Whistledown actually a lot more harmful in the show than she ever was in the books. So they have a rougher road to redemption for Penn in the show. So I think it's good that they're starting to set up these kind of alternative looks where it is like, okay, but is there good to Whistledown? Is it just gossip? Like, what else has she been doing with the column? Like, what is the purpose? What are the good things about this? Because they've really focused heavily on the negatives of it up until this point. And in order for her to keep being Whistledown, you need to start introducing the audience to, well, hey, there's positives. And I think that they did a good job kind of shining a light on the other aspect of Whistledown. Then Cressida meets with the Queen. Again, there's more stakes here in the show than there was in the books, because the literal Queen of England is involved, and she's like, no, I will kill you and your family. She didn't actually say that, but that was the energy she was giving. She was like, you'll be exiled forever if I ever see your face again. And, you know, that puts a little fire under her feet. I don't know what Cressida expected. Like, did she really expect to just be able to say, I'm that, and no contest, nobody questioning, no investigation whatsoever? Like, she just thought people would take her at her word. But it also gives some insight into the rivalry between Lady Whistledown and the Queen, and how they're kind of a kindred spirits in this way, which again is another good thing to set up, because we're hurtling toward the end where the Queen basically needs to be like, okay, Queen, you do you. So they're very similar, and she's like, well, if I don't have a worthy opponent, then who gives a fuck? And you see how much she kind of needs Whistledown, how much she likes Whistledown, how much she admires Whistledown. Like, it's a game to her. It's something that's fun and interesting and entertaining to her, and she likes the little tete-a-tete, you know what I mean? She likes the little chess game, and that's an important thing to establish, but it also, she clocked her teeth so bad, she said, when have you ever paid attention to anyone other than yourself?
What have you observed in your life other than yourself?
Read her for filth, though. Like, she has such a good point. What did Cressida think? And then if Cressida thought, okay, maybe I'll have to write a Whistledown, she really thought the narcissism in this bus, because she really thought, one, she would be able to have the writing prowess to, like, actually physically write it, let alone the ability and the intel and the knowledge of observing those around her to actually have things to report. Whew. That's another thing they did really well. They start to, with this Cressida storyline, they start to really hone in on the fact that Lady Whistledown is not easy. It's not trivial. It's not a thing to be scoffed at or taken lightly. Like, it's a talent. It's entrepreneurship. It's enterprising. It's a business. It's very impressive what she does. Not only just the writing itself, but then the observing, her cornering that market, her making this whole empire out of it. You start to really see, oh, wow, this takes a lot of work, and this is actually very impressive. Even if you don't like the outcome, you can't help but kind of admire what Penn has done, and the show is emphasizing that here as well, for people who are going to be mad. There's a great scene with the himbo husbands.
I did not get gilt flowers when I was wed.
That's because you were not marrying a man with unlimited funds.
I will carry you, my love.
Oh, I'd rather a gilt carriage.
I do not see why Penelope should get such treatment.
I mean, just the best husbands of all time. I truly love this trio. I'll be sad if I don't see them again, even if they just popped up for a little bit, because they do so much with so little. Like, these scenes are not long, they don't need to take up a lot of time, but just them, like, being in the background and just kind of improving stuff, they're just hysterical and hilarious. Then they start the conversation between Penn and Portia, and this is where they really spell it out for you. This is where they say, it's feminist, guys. And you know what? I'm gonna let them have it. I'm gonna let them have it, because they have a point. They have a point. Is it a little, like, convenient? Sure. Is it a little bit more of a simplistic way of looking at Lady Whistledown as a whole? Sure. Like, she's done a little bit worse than they would like to acknowledge at this point, because that's our protagonist, and we have to get to the happily ever after of them. So it's not quite as simple as, like, period girl boss. It's like, you did hurt people, and she does acknowledge that in later episodes. They could have done a little bit more of that, but I do think that framing it through Portia and this conversation, it really spells it out to the audience, and it makes it very clear what exactly they're going for and how they're going to justify such wretched means for the end.
What about my dreams?
What dreams? Ladies do not have dreams. They have husbands. And if you are lucky and you fulfill your role, sometimes what you wish for may come true through him.
Polly Walker also does a really great job here. I love giving Portia a little bit more substance and a little bit more meat for these scenes, because Polly Walker is a really good actress and she can do the comedy and kind of the ridiculousness of it all, but she has more depth to her, and I really like seeing that side of Portia, and I think since they kind of gave her a redemption arc, I'm like, Portia spinoff when? We love Violet and Lady Danbury, but, like, Portia's interesting. If nothing else, she's a very interesting and intriguing character. It's like, why are you the way that you are? And you see softer sides of her this season, and you get a little bit more explanation and backstory on, like, why she may be the way that she is, and I'm like, give her love. This woman has never been loved in her life. Give her love. And no, Jack Featherington does... I can't even say the man's name. No offense to the actor, period. You killed it, because Anyway, that character and storyline, woof! Polly Walker is pretty captivating. She does a really great job in this scene. You see a lot of her motivations. You see a lot of her, like, past and her history and just how scarred she is.
I chose a match for security, and he could not even provide that.
And they basically are talking about, you know, how it is to be a woman in this society and, you know, what dreams. And I remember seeing that in the trailer and going, yeah. I was like, that's a very smart route to go down for this. Because if you're setting it up that way, which it is, essentially, it might not be, like, specifically to Penn. This is kind of just a general thing with women. But if your whole dream, your whole life is being raised to, like, be a wife, that is very stifling, very misogynistic, very patriarchal kind of thing and structure that was in place at the time. And you gain more respect for Penn and add more reverence to kind of what she's been able to do when you look at it through that lens. Because you're like, well, she's already created this empire and she kind of, nobody else has done that and nobody else is allowed to do that. And she's actually technically not allowed to do that, but she did it anyway. Like, you start to really admire what it is that she's built and what it is that she's done and the talent that she has. And also kind of chafe at how unfair it is that, you know, there's just this assumption that she would need to give that up and that she should have no dreams and that her dream should be her husband and should be her husband's dreams and should be fulfilling her husband's dreams. And if she's lucky, then she might get some fulfillment from that. Like, that's a really, really tragic thing. And hearing it from Portia's perspective, she says it so matter-of-factly. It's such a fact of life. It's not, she's not saying it for sympathy or pity or with any connotation. She's literally just like, well, what dreams? Well, you just maybe find fulfillment later in life. Maybe you get a little fulfillment from having kids. And we've seen shades of this with Portia. We saw that with her talk at Marina at the end of season 1, where she was like, you find things to love. So I think that whole thing was really interesting. It's a really interesting kind of theme to explore. It is in line with everything that Bridgerton has honed in on, especially season 1. I think there was a lot of focus with the female protagonist of Daphne on, you know, a woman's place in society and marriage and her worth and value and these societal structures. So I like that we're circling back to that. I like that we're like, talking about it within this context because I hadn't really thought about it in that way with Penn. But it's very interesting to see Portia kind of have this moment, and she's honestly giving good advice, and she doesn't even understand how heartbreaking it is. You can see that that's going to be something that is driving her when she's obviously inevitably going to keep doing Whistledown. And I think that that's a valid thing to talk about. And just her talking about her kids, that was very sweet.
But he gave me you girls. And my greatest wish has always been for you three to do better than I did. And you have.
You can see that she really does care for them. Obviously not the best way, not the healthiest way ever, but you see some of her motivations in a way that I think haven't really ever made sense before. It's kind of just like, why would you do or say that, Portia? And now you can kind of, I mean, still a little cuckoo-cuckoo, but you can kind of see where she's coming from somewhat. And then they end that with a great visual representation of the entire theme of that scene when they have her put her engagement ring on top of all the issues of Whistledown, period. Then we cut to Benedict, and Benedict is just too fine in this scene. He's just too fine for anybody's good. It's a danger. He's a menace to society. He needs to be locked up and put away. Because if he's acting like this with someone he doesn't even like, I can't even imagine what it's going to be like with Sophie. I'm like, Sophie. And also, that two-finger jam suck was diabolical. Diabolical. And I would like to know, was that in the script or was that from Luke Thompson's twisted mind? I would like to know. Inquiring minds would like to know. For educational purposes, for research purposes. Either way, period. Thank you. But I remember being like,
Wonderful.
I was like, what did I just witness? We might have more than one Mr. Fingerton in the family. Come on now. There's a really cute scene at Will's club between all of them. I like this friend group. Like, I like when John is included in this, and then Will... Again, this is where, like, Will works, because he's in the main plot, and he is interacting with our main characters. There's some things that are said in this scene in particular that are very telling for, I think, both Colin and Benedict's characterization that I'll talk about in other videos in more depth. But overall, this is just a cute, good scene. I mean, we love to see male friendship. I also think it's a nice tidbit that Colin talks about his writing all of a sudden. Like, he's very uninhibited and not embarrassed talking about his writing. And everyone's like, what? A manuscript? What are you talking about? He's obviously never spoken about this, but he kind of has the pep in his step. He kind of has the courage to talk about it.
What do you need to write? I'm writing a manuscript, in fact.
Oh, are you?
And then they talk about, you know, Benedict floating aimlessly, and he's never been so happy.
You at least have a direction for your life. Well, I am floating, purposeless.
And are you not the happiest you have ever been?
Oh, right, that is true. Yeah.
We'll see about that. We'll see about that. Then we get to the church scene. I mean, period. Them looking at each other. This is just so cute. It's a really gorgeous, again, on location. It just is better when they're on location. There's a really gorgeous church. I love the little, like, spiral staircase up to the priest talking. I was like, I could get on a power trip with that. No wonder.
And Miss Penelope Featherington. If any of you know cause or just impediment why these two persons should not be joined together in holy matrimony.
Portia and Violet exchanging glances.
Today I also publish the ban.
It's interesting to see all these people in society that we've seen interact separately, all in one room, kind of just shooting each other glances, and that kind of says a lot. Hyacinth and Colin look like literal twins in this scene, which I love. I love that Colin gets so, like, giddy over making Penelope laugh. You're such a dork and such a dweeb, and I love you for it.
Very well. Mr. Bridgerton and Miss Featherington.
It's just dumb. It's just dumb and fluffy and cute. The angles in the scene are really good, and the framing is really, really good, like, artistically, cinematically. Looks really good. Them just right down the barrel, like in the middle of the walkway, the aisle. This whole conversation I could talk about for literal hours. and I will in my pollen relationship analysis, but let's just say yikes and also yes. Like, it's very cute, it's very sweet, it's giving everything. I'm so glad she did confess to him because I was worrying about that. I still don't know exactly how I feel about his reaction. I am glad that they changed from the book because in the book, Colin, like, knew Penelope was obsessed with him. And that didn't sit right with me. That did not sit right with me, especially when she confesses. And I think he literally says, I know. I would never show my face again. That is so humiliating. So I like that Colin was clueless in the show. But I would have liked maybe a little bit more of a surprise reaction from him. But I do think that his, like, I'll spend a lifetime making it up to you is very sweet, very romantic.
I will spend a lifetime begging your forgiveness for not seeing you sooner.
There's no need.
Again, it's one of those scenes that's so bittersweet because it's, like, so cute. And I almost can't be happy for them because I'm, like, worried about the secret. And she's, like, almost going to tell him, and then he gets scared, and then you're like, oh, this is coming, this is happening. But then they just dance off into the sunset, and I'm like, period.
I'm not dancing. My future wife in the church, and we'll be married.
They are so adorable in this scene. It's truly not funny, and it's not okay. I did shed tears, I think, seeing a clip of this before the season came out, because I was just like, stop. Yeah, this is a very beautiful scene. I love this scene. This is one of their elite scenes, for sure, and I will talk about it much more in depth later. Oh, and I was gagged, because at the very end, they take a line from the book, and I love that they put this in there, because it didn't need to be like a plot point or anything. It was literally as they were like fading and zooming out. It was the very end. It was a button to a scene, but the, were you ever punished as a child? That's taken from the book, and I loved that detail, and I was gagged. I was shocked when she said that. I was like, oh!
Were you ever punished as a child?
Oh, that made me emotional! I don't even like that line from the book. That made me emotional. I was not expecting that. Wow. There's a bunch of, like, other stuff going on. Like, Francesca's starting to see, okay, Violet doesn't really support. Lady Danbury is, like, trying to set Marcus up with other people. This is, like, she's trying to sabotage him and Violet. Portia is finally, on board. She sees the vision with Pollen, and, me and her are like this. Like, she's like, aren't they so cute together? She's Pollen's number 2 biggest shipper, because I'm taking that crown. No, I'm definitely not. Somewhat, surely someone, but I'm in there. I'm in the club, and I've never related to Portia more, but it's funny because Prudence and Philippa are, like, reacting to her newfound kind of fascination with Penelope, or her kind of focus and attention on Penelope, and that's an interesting thing to see. Cressida comes back, like, tries to ask Eloise for help. I thought this was crazy of her.
You would like to join me? You do so enjoy words, reading at least, and perhaps you might like to help me write the column.
Cressida, do you not remember what was written about me last year? What you wrote in Whistledown?
Of course.
I guess it shows how, like, desperate she is and how little she knows of social dynamics, because I thought it was absolutely insane that she didn't even think through. Like, she's like, wanna help me? And it's like, obviously Eloise knows that it's not her, but she's like, after what you wrote about me? It's like, Cressida, girl, you didn't think about that? But she's very desperate, she's very pleading. Again, you see a lot of Eloise's growth here, because it's actually a pretty similar fight to the one that Penn and her had at the end of season 2, where, yet again, this sore spot of, well, you haven't done anything, and you're not going to do anything, and you just talk about doing something, is really kind of picked at again, and that's a big insecurity for Eloise.
It's no wonder Penelope abandoned you. All you ever do is talk. You are clearly just envious that I've made something of myself.
But she doesn't lash out in exactly the same way. She's much more mature about it. She's much more reserved about it. She doesn't go expose Cressida. Obviously, I don't know that she really could without exposing Penn. But I think the way that Eloise handled herself here was really good.
Perhaps I am envious of Whistledown. It is quite a feat. And after spending a season feeling nearly invisible, I almost understand why one might be driven to write it. Congratulations on your hard-earned success.
And honestly, it was just, like, sad to see, like, Cressida coming from the shadows being, please. Then we get a little scene of Penn in that robe. That robe. The robe. You're a cowboy like me. Ride, cowgirl, ride is all I can say to that. And she's like burning all her whistle downs, and I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. And maybe this is just my hoarder showing, but I'm like, hold the phone. Why on earth would you be destroying your life's work?
Don't burn them. Oh my god.
Like, it's not like these are on Google Docs. She doesn't have, like, copies. These aren't in the cloud. Like, these are, you know what I mean? Like, she can never guarantee that she will get every single issue that she's ever written ever again. She could still, even if she's trying to, like, you know, say goodbye to Whistledown. Girl, keep your work. Don't you like to reminisce? Don't you like to be nostalgic sometimes? I also did love the juxtaposition of her literally destroying all of her life's work. Direct cut to Colin being, like, inspired and, like, writing, and he's done with his writer's block and he's all inspired. Like, that was a really nice touch. Because, again, I think just visually it reinforces this theme of, well, women having to sacrifice and not be able to have their dreams, and men are, in order for men to be able to have theirs. Then we have the next scenes. They're setting up for the Mondrian Ball. I like the concept, and the production design is beautiful. I want to say that. But again, there's something, it just screams set to me. All of these sets scream set to me. It just always feels so much better when they're on a location. And I don't know the logistics behind that. I'm sure there's reasons for them using more sets now. But it just makes me reminiscent and nostalgic for season 1 when so much was on different locations. Because it just really gives the vibe. I don't even know if it's like, maybe it's like a historical flavor or something like that. Because again, it's not that these sets are bad. They're very good. They're very beautiful. They look good. I'm sure there's a lot of historical accuracy. There's a lot of hard work done, a lot of craftsmanship. Like, I'm not trying to diss the sets themselves. But there's just something, there's a little je ne sais quoi that's missing from when they go on location somewhere. Like, you can, at least me personally, I can really feel when they're on location versus when it's a set. Portia and Pen are finally bonding. Pen, bless Pen, she's like, oh my god, my mom likes me for the first time ever? Yes, you can choose the napkin colors or whatever they're doing. And then she goes to see Jen. No, but period, as she should. And this is why her being friends with Genevieve is really good. There are many reasons, but her having this female friend, this older female friend who kind of lives outside the bounds of society, who understands this part of her a lot better than kind of anyone else who has worked with her, who's collaborated. She needs this perspective. And I think it's really telling, and it's really good that she is the one to deliver it. And, you know, she's not pushy with it, but she certainly is, she's like, well, my favorite part of dressmaking is when, you know, I see the girl's face light up, and I could never give that up. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And she's making Penelope think. You know, Penelope comes in there, she's pretty resolved. She's like, well, no, I don't want to, you know, take for granted a love match, this, that, and the other thing. But you can see it from Genevieve's perspective. It's like, but this is your life. But this is your passion. But this is your talent. But this is your work. Huh? Giving it up? Her, a strong, independent woman, cannot relate. So I think they have a real kindred spirits and a kinship there in kind of being women who are powerful and working through the constraints of society and kind of under everybody's noses, kind of outsmarting them a little bit. And she doesn't want her to lose that part of herself because it is a part of herself. And I think that that's a really good thing to bring to Penelope's attention yet again. This is really funny. The scene where Cressida is trying to write a whistle down is hee-hee-ha-ha hilarious.
Dear reader, it is I, Lady Whistledown. Today I bring you much gossip from about the many lands.
It's so great. It really does emphasize that this is not something that everybody can do. This is not something that people could just copy. This isn't, you know, like, it takes so much ingenuity and so much work and so much talent to make Whistledown. Like, and nobody else can do it. Nobody else can do it like Miss Penelope can do it, because she is Whistledown. Come on now. So she's like trying to write a Whistledown. It sounds terrible and it's very badly written, and I'm like, I'm starting to understand the comment from your mom about you not being the brightest bulb, but but I love the way that her mom looks at her. It's just like, it's not surprise, but it's just like disappointment. They were both really, really good in the scene. This was really funny. And again, I think it makes it really clear that this is not an easy thing to do, and it is something that Penelope should be lauded for. Okay, so now we get into the threesome of it all. And you know what? Here's the thing. Did I say, on record, on camera, that Luke Thompson has chemistry with anything and anyone? Yes, I did say that. Do I stand by that statement? Sort of, kind of. Because rewatching this with a little bit of distance, I have to say, these scenes made me very uncomfortable. I just was like, it's just not it. Like, it's just not working. I think there are a few reasons for that. I want to make it very clear before I get into this, my issue is not that Benedict is bi. I don't have a problem with Benedict being bi. At all. Okay? I just have a problem with the execution of it. Because to me, it feels like a discrepancy in power. It feels like a little bit of a retcon. It feels a little bit shoehorned in. It's kind of haphazardly thrown in there. And it's too little too late. Because people suspected this about Benedict, or kind of got those vibes after season 1. So the natural time to follow that up would be season 2. One way or another. You either kind of confirm or deny, or leave the door open for the future. And they doubled down on Benedict being straight. They gave him a female love interest. They didn't hint to any homosexuality or bisexuality or curiousness or exploration or questioning of sexuality whatsoever. I think even, if I'm not mistaken, that art school that he was at had threesomes with men and women that he was in and around at parties. And we didn't even get a shot of him, like, kind of, like, side-eyeing and kind of being like, a little interested in that. Like, they pivoted. To me, what it feels like is Chris Van Dusen, the showrunner of seasons 1 and 2, was like, no, Benedict's straight. He's straight. We're making him straight. He's straight. And then season 3 and 4, showrunner Jess Bernal was like, actually, no, he's not. And I feel that so keenly. It just feels wrong. It's like, oh, okay. Again, the natural time to do this would have been season 2 for many different reasons, because it's a follow-up to season 1 where you kind of planted those seeds, where people were already talking about it, already thinking about it. It allows more time for that exploration, for that discovery. It lends more credence to that storyline and makes it more of a part of Benedict's character and his journey and his arc and his storylines. Whereas this comes in out of nowhere, to be honest. It really does. I mean, like, I wasn't, like, shocked because, you know, we had the vibes in season 1, but it's been a whole, almost 2 seasons, because we're at the end of season 3, or toward the end, the latter half, and then all of a sudden this comes up, and he's had this whole time with Tilly. You know what I mean? Like, this whole season he's been with women. We only see him with women. We see him with, you know, actually, also, Benedict's not averse to a threesome, because he had a threesome with 2 women in season 1. I'm just like, okay, well, where were the hints of this? Where were the vibes of this? Where were anything? There was nothing. It just came out of nowhere. It felt very shoehorned in. And it was like, oh, okay, so we are doing it. Okay, so by Benedict agenda's back on the table. Okay, like, I was just kind of like, oh, okay, question mark, I guess? It just seemed a little late. And again, this is the very end of the season that they're even planting this. And with Sophie, I doubt his bisexuality is going to play that big, or pansexuality is going to play that big of a part in his season with Sophie, because I do think that they're kind of going more for, like, he hasn't actually felt love or anything resembling love for anyone, man or woman, even though he's been with everyone. And Sophie is the first time that he's ever felt that. So that is in a league of its own and different than everything else already. So it's kind of incomparable, just generally speaking. I do think if they are setting this up for him to be a queer mentor for Francesca when her season comes, I would love that. I see the vision of that. That would be good. But it almost, I mean, it's kind of like, are we just checking like a representation thing? Or are we just trying to be like, another queer Bridgerton? Because it doesn't seem like it's going to play that much in his story. He didn't really seem to be struggling with it ever. Up until, like, that last episode where he's like, oh, wait, let me run away. And then he's like, actually, yes. Like, there was no internal struggle. That it just wasn't hinted at. I just don't think it was well laid out. I don't think it was well executed. And I honestly am just, like, kind of at a loss for Benedict in general, because I can't really speak on Benedict's characterizations in seasons 1 through 3 until I see season 4. Because I don't know where they're going with him, is the truth. Like, I don't know what they're doing. There's a lot of elements and a lot of roads that they could go down, and I just don't know yet. The chemistry was off to me. I didn't really feel like Benedict actually liked this guy. I didn't really feel like he really liked him. I don't know if that's I doubt that's an acting thing, because again, I think Luke Thompson is very good and does have chemistry with people, but it just didn't, to me, like, I was watching it and I was like, it doesn't seem like Benedict, like, I don't know, something about it is just very off. I just think the placement of it is wrong. I think if they were going to do that, the best time to do it would have been season 2. I think it feels really kind of like Frankenstein together now at this point. Unfortunately, that is my thought. And rewatching it with some time and distance, I was like, like, it wasn't even, like, hot to me. It didn't even, like, make me feel anything. You know what I mean? Like, I was just like, oh, okay. Go off, I guess. But it just seemed like we veered in a different direction. We were going down this road, and then all of a sudden, sharp pivot, and it's like, okay. It just... yeah, I don't know. There's a lot that's off about it. But again, there are things I have to reserve judgment for until season 4. Then, you know, the queen comes in, roasts the ball, as always. She's kind of an icon and a legend for that.
As I assumed, lackluster at best.
She said lackluster, as I assumed. But then Alice said, wait a second. This was very Disney Channel, if I'm honest. This was like, wait, let's reveal. And this was a cool contraption. I guess I do have to put myself in their shoes. Like, I bet back then it would have been, like, absolutely mind-blowing. So, you know, then everybody's gagged, and she's like, not bad. I don't mind an alliance between the Queen and Alice. That would serve. Then Fran is trying to talk to Violet, trying to get her to talk to the Queen on their behalf. They mentioned this earlier. John's, like, awkwardly there. I really liked Fran kind of pushing through her discomfort in this. You could see it. Like, it's very against her nature to kind of poke and prod, but she's like, Mom, like, I need you to do this, and you're ignoring me, and you're putting it off, and I don't like it. Like, she gets fed up, and I like seeing that shade of Francesca where she's, like, standing up for herself, and she's like, okay, but, like, what about this? It's interesting to see her this kind of upset about something, and this hurt, and she says your support has been perfunctory at best, and did she lie? Did she tell a lie? She's never told a lie in her life. Yes, Violet. And that's another thing about this pisses me off. I don't understand Violet's opposition to this. I guess they could be setting up something for Michaela later, where it's like, well, Violet in her heart knew that that wasn't her one true love and just wanted Francesca to have a Michaela type of love. But I hate that. If that's what they're doing, I hate that, and I think it's stupid. I think it's stupid, and it just made me pissed at Violet, and it was annoying, and it was grating. And I was just like, this is literally your purest child, and she never asked for anything, and she's so quiet, and she literally wants one thing ever out of you, and you can't even give her that. And I think Fran does a good job of, like, making Violet realize that, so then she storms off, and she's crying, and then Marcus follows after her, and then Lady Danbury follows after Marcus, and, you know, I guess this is, like, a follow-up on some of the things we learned with Queen Charlotte, but we never saw Marcus and Queen Charlotte. In fact, I don't know that she even mentioned having brothers, but this is around that time period that they're talking about this big thing that Lady Danbury's so upset about. To be honest with you, felt, I suppose this is not necessarily untrue to life. Felt a little juvenile, a little immature from Lady Danbury's perspective. I was like, really, girl? You're really, like, she's what, like 60 or something? And you're, like, still holding a grudge over this, and you haven't even talked to your brother, and you're also, again, that's her younger brother, and she's thinking that he really had a say. You know what I mean? Like, I just think the lack of kind of, I guess, empathy or understanding she extended to him in that situation was a little odd, because I don't think I would ever blame a younger sibling for that type of a thing, especially if they're that much younger. Like, I wouldn't assume that they knew and were plotting against me or something like that. But I guess in the society where it's like, okay, all these men plotting against her and she's the only woman, that could make sense how she kind of just assumed that and took that on. I did love her acting in the scene. Both of theirs, actually. Their back and forth was really good. And I like that he was like, enough. He's like, stop. Just stop. What is it? Say it. Because I was getting like that too. I was like, girl, just, I mean, get it off your chest.
Sister. Enough. Whatever I have done to deserve this ire, tell me, so that we might be done with it.
And I love the delivery of Soma. Oh, she ate and devoured with that.
Soma.
You think you can call me by my born name and right the wrong?
But again, this is just kind of a lackluster, like, reveal. It's like, oh, that's what you, like, hate him over? Like, he didn't even do anything bad. But of course, it had to be that way because they're trying to get him with Violet. So it's not like he could have actually done anything really bad. So it's kind of just like, it doesn't really amount to anything. But I do love their reconciliation in the end. So, you know, siblings hold grudges, people are immature, sometimes things really wound people for a long time. It doesn't make a lot of sense to other people, but it does to them. So this can be chalked up to that. Fran had a great line where she said, not every attachment has to be dramatic and hard-fought. And again, so true, Queen, so real for saying that, and I would like for them to keep this energy. Okay, now we get to the best part of the episode. This was a gag and a half. I mentioned this in my overall season review. This is how you use music, people. Come on now. We're getting back to our roots. The world is healing. The confident reveal? Cressida walking in to the string cover of Confident and everybody being absolutely gagged and then like whispering and her having that crazy hair and crazy bow and crazy like dark. It just matched the energy and the vibe so well. It was so perfectly paced and timed.
It is Lady Whistledown.
It literally gave me full body chills. Like I was like, it was just like a gag and a serve. And I was like, see, this is what we could be having. This is the potential we had. And I knew it was there with Cressida. Like, there are scenes like this that are up for grabs. And I'm so glad that they took it. And they really ate this one. Like, I love this scene so much. I love Portia's little, like, oh, a scandal writer is a daughter. Ba-da-ba-bum. Like, so good. The music works so good. And then it's like, ooh.
A scandal writer for a daughter. Can you imagine?
Woo! I actually love the scene so fucking much, I can't even tell you. Like, it's just perfect on every level. It's a little camp, it's a little ridiculous, but it's dramatic. And it's also, like, poignant, and it does work on a lot of levels. And it's so good. I'm like, oh, yes, you ate that. They really did that. And then they did that again with Cressida's voiceover. That gave me chills, too. I was like, And then I love them establishing Lord Cho being like, Cressida Cowper, I detest. Lady Whistledown, she's kind of great. Because I love the smatterings that they're already kind of putting in there. They did this at the beginning of the episode of the Tawn's reactions and opinions of Whistledown. You know, she's the best, she's the worst, oh, she's evil, oh, she's actually a genius. Like, there's a lot of people that do actually admire her. There's a lot of people who hate her and want her blood, and, you know, like, that's a good thing to set up for the eventual reveal. Then we get to Penn and Colin's adorable little dance. This is a very short conversation, but it actually is pretty loaded. Again, I'll get into that in my Paul relationship analysis more. But he's talking about turning his travel diary into a manuscript, and she's really, you know, touched by this. And you see the follow-up of her conversation with Portia earlier where she offers to edit it. Because you can see the wheels turning in her head where she's like, okay, I might not be able to write, but maybe I could help Colin with his writing. And that's how I could scratch this itch, and that's how I could be creatively fulfilled. And, you know, he denies her, not because he doesn't want her involvement, but because of his own insecurities. I'm like, oh my god, just a cacophony of insecurities here back and forth. Like, we're just dealing with wounds. I'm like, oh god, your wounds are not compatible with your wounds right here. But that was a really cute conversation overall. He was saying, like, editing out the more personal Colin, how many personal passages did you write? Give them to me now. I would like to see them. I literally want them to release a book of Colin's travel journal entries. In fact, I'll write it. Maybe I should. But I'm like, I would like to see it. Thank you very much. And Penn would too, and I'd blame her. And also, too, he then says, well, those are just for you. Colin, say less. But I'm like, someone wrote a fanfic based on this now. I need it yesterday. Thank you very much. Then we see Penn and Elle kind of reunite in the chaos. This interruption is well done. You know, it's very chaotic. Penn and Eloise come back together. They're off, but of course, attentive King Colin, nothing passes him by. And he sees them, you know, absconding to the other room. This is the road to redemption for their friendship. They have a common enemy now, which they always did, but especially now that Cressida has released this and is, like, threatening to basically assume the identity of Whistledown. And it forces Eloise to admit the strength and power of Whistledown, that it's not just gossip, which I also loved in the trailer. They put that in there. And that's a really good point to make. And they've been making that this entire episode. They make that very clear. But it's good for Eloise to be reminded of that. And she really, the influence is clear to her, because then she's like, what have I done? Like, I've invited this Viper into my home, and now she has nearly as much power as the queen, or you know, something like that. And I think that's a really good kind of like reality check. I also think that this is where they start planting the seeds of like, Penelope has grown, she has changed, she has learned, she does have remorse for what she's done. And, you know, sure, is it a little convenient that she's like, I'll do good with my pit now? Like, yes, like, sure, I get it. But it's not beyond the scope of belief to me. I think when she explains why she started it in the first place, that's good for Eloise and the audience to hear, and that she's done some introspection about it. And I love the call she said. She said, maybe the alliteration was a little overdone. So me. That was so writer-coded. Like, I was like, judging your past selves writing? Okay, so relatable.
Foisted upon the marriage market like sorrowful sows by their tasteless, tactless mama. The alliteration was a little overdone, I admit, but...
She talks about, you know, feeling powerless, and that's why she started it in the first place, and admits that she should have been giving voice to the powerless. And that kind of sets up a future where Whistledown can be something that is empowering for everybody and is really for the greater good, and shows that she's been thinking a lot about this, and she does feel bad about what she's done, and she's determined to make it right. And Eloise is the first person that's going to allow that to happen, that gives her that permission, and that's kind of one of the wounds that she needs to fix along the way. But that's the first step to kind of everybody forgiving her, is Eloise forgiving her, or at least allowing her to prove that this can be used for good, which is her goal and what she does in the end. And so I think this sets up the rest of the season really well as well. And I also like that it wasn't like a magical reunion between the two of them. Like, there is some affection, but it still feels stunted. It still feels awkward. It still feels like there's distance between them, because there is, and it's still hard. It's not a perfect rejoining. It's not like everything is fixed. I think both of them, again, their maturity is really showing, and their character growth is showing in the way that they interact with each other, because they do care about each other, and they do want what's right, they do want what's good. And, you know, I think there's a lot more cheesy ways that this kind of team up, or this kind of concoction of a plan could have been done, and I feel like it was pretty, it was pretty, like, level-headed and grounded in reality. Then we see, you know, Pen, stop, wipe that smirk off your face, girl. She's writing in the Whistledown. She said, I'm eating this. She's like, I'm like, that smirk is about to be wiped off your face, because look who's coming. Speaking of which, she gets in her little Lady Whistledown accent. She's feeling high and mighty. We know the buildup. Like, I knew what was happening. I knew what was coming. I was like, well, he's following her. Duh. No duh. Did this surprise anybody? Because I was like, well, he saw them leave. And this is too good right now. And we're leading up to the end of the episode, and also he needs to find out. It's so funny. There's so many, like, shows that I feel like I just can't be gagged by in the same way as a lot of people, because I'm like, well, obviously this needs to happen. Like, I'm thinking about it from a writing perspective of, like, the story structure and whatnot, and I'm like, well, this needs to happen about this time, and, you know, this person needs to, like, I'm always, so it's just like, I'm like, well, obviously. It's the same thing with Colin's dream. Like, so many people were surprised by that. I was like, it has to be Colin's dream. Duh. Like, in my writer mind, I was like, well, of course it's Colin's dream. So I definitely saw this coming from a million miles away, but it was still a gag. He is very hurt. She's very scared, and I love the zoom-ins on them and their expressions.
Colin.
You are Lady Whistledown.
Let's fucking go. Him especially, he does a really good job here. Because he has so little dialogue, but he really shows how he feels. So much so that it's like, again, obviously we can binge it, but it's like, people are wanting to see they need to see the next episode. They're like, oh fuck, oh, he finally found out, and he's mad, and oh, there's tears in his eyes, and oh. So he did a really good job delivering that, and, you know, just ending on your Lady Whistledown. Perfect. So good. Such a good place to end it. So that is episode 6. I'm sure there's things I could talk about. I'm sure there's things I didn't talk about. But generally, that is my overall thoughts and my yap session on this episode. Let me know what you thought about this episode, about this season, about this video, about this yap session. What do you agree with, disagree with? Let me know what you would like to see in the future. Really, comments help me and inspire me to actually continue making these videos. I don't know that I would if it weren't for comments. So just let me know your thoughts down below, and I will see you for yet another Bridgerton video very soon.